Hello, my dear CA intermediate students. Welcome you to the amendment session for November 23 exam. So, compared to May 23, the amendments for November 23 are relatively very less. We don't have that many amendments. So, few amendments only, that too in value of supply, then input tax credit only, and other small amendments only. So, therefore, rest assured. And but even then, so definitely students will be having a notion that as there are some amendments, etc. So therefore don't worry, and this amendments video covers all the amendments applicable for your exam, November 23 exam. Then when it comes to May 23 exam result, this time amazing result has been given by ACI, and lot of our students have qualified, and many students have messaged me saying that the fast track batch which they have attended. So we uploaded a free fast track batch in our YouTube channel, and even perhaps in Chennai we conducted one free fast track face to face in Chennai. So for that also around 600 students have attended, and thereafter so a lot of students watched in YouTube, and they are really becoming so successful. I am so happy that GST has contributed so to their success in tax paper. In turn, they are able to clear group 1. I'm really happy for that. And even this attempt also, that is November 23 also, I'm going to release the free fast track in YouTube. And if you are in Chennai, you can also attend the face-to-face classes like last time. So we will be conducting, and I already gave you an assurance that every attempt, every 6 months, I will be conducting a free face-to-face fast track batch, as well as in YouTube also it will be available. If you are belonging to other parts also, and if you can spare 4 days, you can definitely come to Chennai. So it is from September 21st to 24th. So that is the timing, and even more details related to that, the Google form, etc. and all, we will be uploading a YouTube video related to that. We will share the Google form also. Meanwhile, I request you all to please subscribe to our channel, as well as to please join the Telegram group at THARUN'S GST. That is the Telegram group at THARUN'S GST. You join that Telegram group for CA Inter, so that whatever is your queries, you will be able to ask, and even updates, anything related to intermediate, I will be posting in that. Okay. So without further delay, let's move on to the amendments that we have in GST for November 23 exam. When it comes to segment 1, introduction to GST, we don't have any amendments. And with respect to segment 2, that is taxable event in GST, so there we have one amendment that is related to no claim bonus with respect to insurance company. So usually what happens is that when you take an insurance policy, and that particular insurance policy is like a general insurance policy like Mediclaim or motor vehicle insurance, etc. Now you are not claiming anything from the insurance company for the particular financial year. Now next financial year, you need to pay the renewal premium. In that renewal premium, you will get a deduction from the insurance company called as no claim bonus. So you don't have to pay the full premium, you will be paying the reduced premium. So every year you have to pay the premium for renewal of the insurance policy, general insurance. So for that, from the gross premium, we will get a deduction called as no claim bonus. Let's try to understand this little bit with the help of a chart. There is a insurance company and there is a insured. So first, the insurance company will be providing indemnity, indemnify the loss incurred by the insured. Now what happens for the first year? So this insured will pay to the insurance company a premium for the first year. In the beginning of the first year or first year, so this insured will pay the premium to the insurance company, and this insured is not claiming anything that particular financial year. So they are refraining themselves from claiming any amount from the insurance company. So which means that there is no claim lodged during the year. Now, so as there is no claim made by this insured for the first year, so at the end of the first year, so the insurance company is aware that, okay, this person has not claimed anything. So for the second year, insurance company will give him a renewal premium receipt. In that renewal premium for the second year, insurance company will specify what is the gross premium, renewal premium, minus no claim bonus, because first year he did not claim anything. So a no claim bonus deduction is given and the net premium is specified. So now this amount, so what our insured will do, our insured will make the payment of this amount to the insurance company. Which amount? The net premium. So this is the information here. Now in this, the question here is whether the no claim bonus which the insured gets from the insurance company. So insurance company is giving a no claim bonus to the insured. For what? For agreeing to refrain from claiming any amount from the insurance company. So will this activity become supply? Will that no claim bonus becomes consideration? So that will it be chargeable to any GST? That is the question here. First of all, if you see, this no claim bonus will be given to the insured by the insurance company for not claiming anything. So it does not mean that the insured should not claim anything, then he will get the bonus. It's not like that. So therefore it is like he gets a bonus because insured is not claiming anything. It's not that insured is not claiming anything, so he is getting that bonus. So hope you understood what I am telling. So this is not a cause and effect relationship. Mainly the type of contract is what? It's a contract of indemnity, wherein insured will enter into contract with the insurance company, where insurance company will indemnify the loss that is incurred by the insurance that is insured. And suppose if there is no claim made by the insured, the insurance company will get it as a gain. Actually that's a gain to the insurance company. So due to that reason, they are giving some benefit to the insured in the next year. So therefore, this particular no claim bonus cannot be treated as consideration in the hands of the insured. Consequently, this will not become supply and this will not be chargeable to GST. That is being clarified in this circular. You can see the relevant extract of this circular, see the issue involved. Whether the deduction on account of no claim bonus by the insurance company from the insurance premium payable by the insured can be considered as consideration for supply provided by the insured to the insurance company for agreeing to obligation to refrain from the act of lodging insurance claim during the previous year. For which, what is the observation that is made by the CBIC is that this particular insurance policy is a contract of indemnity and insured is not under any contractual obligation not to claim insurance during the period covered by the policy in lieu of NCB. So I am giving you NCB, so don't claim, not like that. So if you are not claiming, I will give you NCB. It is not like I will give you NCB so that you should not claim. It's not like that. Therefore, it is clarified that there is no supply provided by the insured to the insurance company in the form of agreeing to the obligation to refraining from the act of lodging insurance claim during the previous year. And this NCB cannot be considered as consideration and therefore it will not constitute supply provided by insured to the insurance company. So this is what you need to remember with respect to this. Continuing to this clarification with respect to no claim bonus, there is another clarification which is given that is having an impact related to value of supply. The issue involved here is simple. So now, so far we have seen from the insured perspective. Now see from the insurance company perspective. Insurance company is showing an amount of gross premium and they are showing a deduction of no claim bonus and there is a net premium. So continuing to the previous chart. So there is a insurance company, so which is going to raise the premium for the second year, where if you see here, so here what happens, so gross premium minus no claim bonus, there is a net premium. Whether the insurance company is going to pay GST on the gross premium or the net premium. So definitely premium will be treated as consideration in the hands of the insurance company and the insurance company is required to pay GST on the premium. But the question here is whether the insurance company is going to pay GST on the gross premium or the net premium. For that, we have one provision, section 15 subsection 3, which says that if any discount is given by the supplier to the recipient before or at the time of supply and duly recorded in the invoice, then the discount is allowed as a deduction, correct? So therefore, in this case, this no claim bonus is like a discount in literal sense, because what happens here, gross premium minus no claim bonus, the net premium. So therefore, this deduction is like a discount which is given before or at the time of supply, and if it is duly recorded in the invoice, it is allowed as a reduction. GST is payable on the net amount. Suppose if this no claim bonus is not duly recorded in the invoice, will it be allowed as a reduction? Suppose if it gets as a discount at the time of making the payment. So in the invoice they did not specify this, but at the time of making the payment they are giving a deduction with respect to this, like some voucher or coupons, etc. So like that if they give, will this be allowed as a reduction? No, it will not be allowed as a reduction, because section 15 subsection 3 clearly says discount given before or at the time of supply is allowed as deduction only if the discount is duly recorded in the invoice. Okay, so now let's try to understand this. So what is it we need to know? Whether this no claim bonus is allowed as a reduction or not. Yes, it is allowed as a reduction as per section 15(3)(a). So first we need to see, as per 15(3)(a), any deduction which is given before at the time of supply not included in the value if the same is shown in the invoice. Therefore, is the NCB shown in the invoice or not shown in the invoice? NCB shown in the invoice. So if NCB is shown in the invoice, definitely it will not be included in the value. If NCB is not shown in the invoice, it will be included in the value. Then what is the general practice? The general practice being followed by the insurance company is that whenever they give the invoice, so they will clearly specify the NCB as a reduction. So usually renewal notice will be given. So an intimation or a notice will be given to us by the insurance company that, so there is a renewal premium with respect to this, you have to pay, this is the deadline, like that. So 1 month before the deadline itself, they will start giving you the information for renewal premium. So in that, they will clearly mention, so this is your gross premium and this is the no claim bonus, this is the net amount. Even perhaps in the invoice also, they will clearly show this fact. So practically, if you see, all insurance companies which are giving NCB, they will show it as a reduction in the invoice. So consequently, it will be allowed as a deduction. Now, here, is it having any impact on Rule 32? In Rule 32, we have Rule 32 sub Rule 3, that is in case of Rule 32 sub Rule 4 actually. Rule 32 sub Rule 2 is in case of forex transactions. Sub Rule 3 is air travel agent. Rule 32 sub Rule 4 life insurance business. There, while computing the GST on the premium, so premium will be gross premium minus amount allocated for investment in case of reinvestment policy, in case of risk cover policy, on the total premium amount, like that. We have some information whether this particular no claim bonus is having any impact over there. See, definitely in case of life insurance, there is nothing like that called no claim bonus, because in life insurance, what that a person will not die, or he will die, he will claim, and again he will be born, and again he will take. So practically there is nothing called no claim bonus in life insurance policies. That Rule 32 is applicable only in case of life insurance policies, so don't get confused. So this no claim bonus concept is only in case of other than life insurance, that is general insurance only, not in case of life insurance. So this is not having any impact over there. Okay, so now if you see the clarification what is being provided, so you can see here whether no claim bonus provided by the insurance company to the insured can be considered as admissible discount for the purpose of determination of value of supply of insurance service provided by the insurance company to the insured. For that, they are giving a reference of 15(3)(a), and so therefore this will be allowed as deduction, and they have to disclose that in the invoice. So that is the clarification that is being provided here. Okay. Now we are moving on to the next amendment, which is in taxable event itself. So that is in liability to pay GST. We know that we have some services notified under section 9 subsection 3, read with notification 13/2017, where liability to pay GST in case of these notified services is on the recipient. And we have that list of notified services as Sir, CG, got, salads. In that G refers to government services. Services provided by government to business entity is covered under RCM. Now, in this government, we also have state legislature and parliament. Now they have even added through a notification, amendment to this notification 13/2017, in this government services to business entity under RCM, they even added, we have this courts and tribunals. So generally, this courts and tribunal services, we have learnt long back in exclusion from supply. As per 7 subsection 2, read with schedule 3 of CGST Act. So we have legal fee collected by court or tribunal excluded from supply. But now they brought this under RCM. Does it mean it is not a supply? No, it's not like that. Courts or tribunals, if they provide legal services, for that any legal fee collected is excluded from supply even now. But courts or tribunals provides other services to the business entities for which they collect some money. On that money collected by the court or tribunal, the liability to pay GST will arise, but the liability is not on the court or tribunal but on the business entity. For example, what courts and tribunals will do, they give their premises on a rental basis for these photocopier shops, canteens, then for some advocates like renting of chambers, and even for telecom operators to install the telecom tower on the top of the court building. So these are some activities of the court or tribunal other than legal services provided to business entities. On this amount, whatever is collected by court or tribunal, there was a confusion before whether GST is payable by the court or tribunal under FCM. So for that, now they gave a clarity by way of notification, amending notification 13/2017, wherein they are telling that court or tribunal services to business entities is covered under RCM, where liability to pay GST is on the business entity under RCM. Again, when it comes to Parliament and state legislature, also the same way. Parliament and state legislature will get revenue by way of renting out their premises, or sometimes they will be allowing their premises to be used for certain purpose for which they will get some money. So on these amounts, if they are getting it from a business entity, so again business entity is liable to pay GST under RCM. So let's try to analyze this little bit in detail. So first, we have a service provider, that is central government and state government. And who is the service recipient? Business entity. So we have certain exemptions, so covered under exemptions. So we have some general exemptions and specific exemptions. So there is no need to pay GST in this case. So liability to pay GST shall not arise. Then second, what if central government or state government, including local authority, is providing services to a business entity and it is not covered under the exemptions? Then in that case, liability to pay GST is on the business entity under RCM, but only one exception we have. What is that? Renting of immovable property service by government to business entity, where the business entity is unregistered. So government is required to pay GST under FCM. Otherwise, definitely it will be RCM, where business entity only will pay GST under RCM. This is with respect to government. Then Parliament or state legislature providing services to a business entity, and if it is covered under any entry in the notification 12/2017 exemptions. So anywhere in the exemption, if it is covered, like renting of residential premises to unregistered person, or services provided by way of United News of India, Press Trust of India, like that. So any entry, if it is covered, then it will be exempted and liability to pay GST shall not arise. What if the state legislature or parliament is providing service to a business entity and this is not covered anywhere in the exemption? Then it will be taxable. Then who will pay GST? Again, business entity will pay GST under RCM. Now let's take courts or tribunals. Court or tribunal. Here we have 3 points. Court or tribunal providing services to a business entity in relation to legal services which is actually excluded from supply. So generally any fee collected by court or tribunal for providing legal service is excluded from supply na. So therefore it is excluded from supply, consequently liability to pay GST shall not arise. What if court or tribunal is providing some services to a business entity, and if it is covered under any entry, if it is covered under any entry in the exemption notification 12/2017, then also it will be exempted, so liability to pay GST shall not arise. So in which case then it will be taxable? First, court or tribunal providing service to a business entity and the said activity should not be covered under exemption, then it will be taxable. Other activities other than legal service or other than those covered under exemption, then it will be taxable. In that case, liability to pay GST is on the business entity under RCM. So this is the impact. So in short, so what is the amendment here? The amendment is simple. Court or tribunal, then state legislature and parliament is also added to government services to business entity, which will be covered under RCM now. So this point can definitely be tested in the forthcoming exams. Now we are moving on to amendment in segment 3. So in segment 2, we had two amendments. One is related to NCB, whether it is supply or not, and the second one that is related to this court or tribunal being now added for RCM purpose. And then in segment number 3, so we have the first amendment that is related to mentioning of recipient details in the tax invoice, whether the recipient detail should be mentioned in the tax invoice or not. For that, let's see what is the existing provisions. The existing provision is simple. First we need to see, so this information in rule 46. Actually rule 46 contains the information related to tax invoice. What are the contents of tax invoice? There we have this information. Whether the recipient details to be mentioned in the invoice. Let's see what is the existing provision. We need to first check the value of supply in the invoice. If the value of supply in the invoice is less than 50,000 or greater than or equals to 50,000. If the value of supply in the invoice is less than 50,000 or greater than or equals to 50,000. If it is less than 50,000, then again we need to see, is it B2B or B2C? Less than 50,000, B2B or B2C? Okay, less than 50,000, if it is B2B, definitely we need to mention the recipient details in the invoice. Name, address and GST of the recipient. So even if the value is less than 50,000, B2B we need to mention. Whereas less than 50,000, B2C, recipient details not required to be mentioned. So if the recipient is asking, we will mention. So otherwise recipient details is not required to be mentioned in the invoice. This is when if the value is less than 50,000. What if the value exceeds 50,000? If the value exceeds 50,000, again B2B, B2C classification. B2B, you have to mention the name, address and GST of the recipient. B2C also, you need to mention the name, address of the recipient and address of delivery with state code. So definitely recipient details to be mentioned. So this is the existing situation. Now what is the issue that is involved for this amendment? What has happened? Many e-commerce transactions and OIDR transactions are taking place today. And all these e-commerce transactions and OIDR transactions, if you see the value does not exceed like less than 50,000 only. You subscribe for OTT where it will be more than 50,000. B2C transactions, majority of the OIDR services will be B2C. Even majority of the e-commerce transactions will be B2C. So supply to unregistered person and the value will not exceed like less than 50,000. So therefore, if recipient details are not mentioned in the invoice, then there is a possibility of tax evasion. How there is a possibility of tax evasion? One such situation I will tell you, listen. In 18(1)(a), we have one concept, section 18 subsection 1(a). You are newly getting registered. You make application for registration within 30 days from the date you are liable to get registered. Now you can take the ITC with respect to GST paid on inputs as such, inputs in WIP, inputs in FG, and these inputs, whatever GST paid you can take as ITC, and there is no need of any matching. And if you file ITC 1 up to 2 lakhs self-declaration, beyond 2 lakhs certificate from CA-CMA. So beyond 2 lakhs, no problem, CA-CMA certificate is there, they will verify. But up to 2 lakhs, where there is verification, on self-declaration basis, we will file the ITZ1 form and we will take ITZ. And we will give the supporting invoices. In that supporting invoices, what will happen? Lot of e-commerce transactions invoices, OIDR invoices we will produce, because that will not have recipient detail, but that will have GST information. Say we made some purchases, so some of our friends have made some purchases of mobiles or some electronics or some requirements, office equipment, like office requirements, office supplies, or even OIDR supplies, like some subscriptions, etc., online subscriptions we would have made. For all these invoice, recipient details will not be there, because statutorily it is not required to mention the recipient details. Now you will take those invoices and you will claim the ITZ refund, like ITZ with respect to that, and because of which up to 2 lakh self-declaration. So therefore some 1,80,000 or 1,90,000 you will put and you will take that ITZ, adjust against this liability, your liability. You will collect GST from the customer. Actually, this is a fake credit. You should not get the credit. You got the credit. So how to control this? And they cannot bring matching here. Why they cannot bring matching here? Now only you are getting registered. When now only you are getting registered, how can they bring matching concept and all? Because if they bring matching concept, so definitely supplier cannot report these details in GSTR1. Consequently, it will not be made available, because at the time when you made purchases, you were an unregistered person. So what they are telling is that they made amendment in Rule 46. What they are telling in Rule 46, in case of e-commerce transactions and OIDR transactions, even if the value is less than 50,000 and it is B2C, we need to definitely mention the recipient details. Now let's see the amended chart related to this. So this same amendment in Rule 46 only. First we need to check value of supply in the invoice. Value of supply in the invoice less than 50,000. Actually the focus now is on less than 50,000 only, less than 50,000. B2B, no problem. So definitely recipient details to be mentioned, name, address and GST of the recipient. B2C. Now this B2C is further divided into 2. That is services through e-commerce operator or OIDR supplier. Even though the value is less than 50,000, name, address of the recipient along with PIN code needs to be mentioned. Whereas, if it is other services, other cases, other than service through e-commerce operator and OIDR, then in that case, only when recipient asks, we need to mention, otherwise no need to mention the recipient details. So this is the amendment that has happened. Whereas with respect to greater than or equals to 50,000, no change, same. What is that? B2B, so name, address and GST of the recipient. B2C, name and address of the recipient along with the address of delivery and the state code that needs to be mentioned. So this is the updated chart with respect to Rule 46. The next amendment in this segment 3 is related to invoice cum bill of supply. Let's see the background provisions related to this. You are a registered person. You are a registered person making some supply of goods or services. You make taxable supplies. What is the document that you will give? Tax invoice. You make exempted supplies. Registered person making exempted supplies. What is the name of the document? Bill of supply. Same way, you are a registered person making taxable as well as exempted supplies in a single transaction. It's not composite supply or mixed supply. It is like individual supplies only. But in a transaction, it involves more than one supplies, wherein few are taxable, few are exempted. It is not mixed supply, because when mixed supply will come, only when the price is single, mixed supply will come, otherwise it will be individual supplies. Now, if it is B2B, you will give separate tax invoice for taxable supplies and separate bill of supply for exempted supplies. Whereas, if it is B2C, you need to give, like in as per law, you can give a consolidated, that is single tax invoice cum bill of supply. In one document itself, you can mention what are all the taxable supplies, what is the GST rate, what are all the exempted supplies, and no GST with respect to that. Like that, a single document can be given. Which case? In case of supplies involving, that is both taxable and exempted, to unregistered person, B2C. Now, so here what is the issue in this? The issue is, what are the contents of tax invoice? We have a rule. What are the contents of bill of supply? We have a rule. But in this tax invoice cum bill of supply, what details needs to be mentioned? There is no clarity. what details to be mentioned in this tax invoice and bill of supply. And moreover, in this case, what they will do, again, they will not mention the recipient name, and they will give on the strength of this invoice, again, that cheating will happen. So due to that reason, here also they made amendment. What is that? This consolidated tax invoice cum bill of supply, if it is issued, that should contain the same details as that are required in case of tax invoice and bill of supply. So we have rule 46, which talks about contents of tax invoice. Then rule 49, contents of bill of supply. Then rule 54, contents of tax invoice in special cases. So 3 rules. What are the 3 rules? Rule 46, contents of tax invoice. Rule 49, contents of bill of supply. Rule 54, contents of tax invoice cum bill of supply. Now what they are telling, whenever you are giving this single tax invoice cum bill of supply, that should contain all the contents of tax invoice and bill of supply as per rule 49. So 46 and 54. So that detail should be mentioned in that document, which means whether recipient details also should be shown in the single tax invoice cum bill of supply. Yes, it needs to be shown in single tax invoice cum bill of supply. Okay. So that is the clarification which is being provided here, and you can see that consequently rule 46A is amended accordingly to make that obligatory on the part of the registered person who is supplying taxable as well as exempted goods or service or both to an unregistered person to include the relevant particulars as prescribed in rule 46. What is that? Contents of tax invoice. Rule 49, contents of bill of supply. Or rule 54, contents of tax invoice in special cases as applicable while issuing a single invoice cum bill of supply by inserting the following proviso. So they are adding this proviso that invoice cum bill of supply shall contain the particulars as specified in rule 46 or 49 or 54. So that information is being given. So again, what is the objective? Again, what is the objective of this amendment? The objective of this amendment is same. The same reason like how people tried to take ITC in terms of 18(1)(a) to avoid that scenario of 18(1)(a) fake credit only. They are just bringing all these things that in tax invoice, the recipient details should be mentioned. Let's see the third amendment that we have in this segment, invoice and time of supply, that is related to e-invoice. E-invoice is not applicable to certain class of persons, certain class of registered persons. E-invoice is not applicable. Who are those class of registered persons? We have that list in a simple manner. We remember biggest, B for banking company, I for insurance company, G for government department or local authority, another G for goods transport agency, and E for exhibition of film in a multiplex theatre, and S for a CZ unit, and T for transportation of passengers by any mode. So this is biggest. So now here what happens is that with respect to these class of registered persons, even though their aggregate turnover during any previous year from 2017-18 to 2021-22 exceeds 10 crores, because what is the e-invoice applicability? Only when your aggregate turnover during the previous year exceeds, any previous year exceeds 10 crores, then e-invoice is applicable for B2B supplies. But these class of persons, even if their aggregate turnover during previous year exceeds the 10 crores, but e-invoice is not applicable to them. Now, what is the issue here that is involved for this circular? So the issue is simple. Now there is a banking company whose aggregate turnover during any previous year, there is a banking company whose aggregate turnover during previous year, any previous year exceeds 10 crores. Now they are providing banking services as well as other than banking services also. Some other services other than banking services, like they have a premises which they are doing subletting for some other purpose. Okay. Now in this case, so other services, whether e-invoice will be applicable or not applicable is the issue. So there is a bank which is providing services to the customer, and the bank's aggregate turnover during any previous year exceeds 10 crores, and they are providing banking services as well as other services. With respect to banking services, definitely e-invoice is not required. With respect to other services, whether e-invoice is required or not required. So they are telling that with respect to class of persons which is notified for non-applicability of e-invoice, the clarification says not only for their services but also any other services provided by them, e-invoice is not applicable. So coming to this example, the bank providing banking services, anyhow e-invoice not applicable. What about the other services provided by the bank? Even with respect to that also e-invoice is not applicable. Let's see the clarification related to that. It is clarified through CBIC circular that the exemption for mandatory generation of e-invoice is for the entity as a whole and not for the certain supplier. Therefore, service provided by bank other than banking service is exempt from mandatory generation of e-invoice. Even though they gave this circular in the context of bank, but even this is applicable for other suppliers who are covered under biggest. That's what I have given a note. So for all other suppliers who are all involved in this list of biggest, for everyone it is the same situation. For any service provided by them, e-invoice is not applicable, not necessary that it should be services related to the business. So other services also if they provide, so that do not involve e-invoice. The next amendment that we are going to see is in value of supply. Already in value of supply, one amendment that we have seen, that is with respect to that no claim bonus allowed as deduction for the insurance company. Now the next amendment is related to the incentives which are received by acquiring banks with respect to BHIM, BEAM or UPI transactions or RuPay card transactions, etc. Let's try to understand what is it about. There is a acquiring bank. Who is an acquiring bank? Any payment gateway service provider like Razorpay or Paytm or any bank which will do the settlement of the transactions. What is settlement of the transaction? Settlement of the transactions means, so whenever you use your debit card, credit card or GPay, wallets, etc. So now money gets debited in your account. So it needs to get credited into the vendor's account. For this purpose, so some bank has to do the settlement at the back end. At the back end, someone should work for this. So that particular bank which will take care of this, debiting from your account and taking the money and putting into vendor account is called as an acquiring bank. So to that acquiring bank, who is the customer? Who is the customer to that acquiring bank? The shopkeepers. The shopkeepers or the vendors will become the customers for that acquiring bank. Here what happens is that the acquiring bank is providing services to the customer. Services supplied by acquiring bank to facilitate RuPay debit card or UPI transactions to the customer. And for this, usually, customers like this vendors or shopkeepers, whenever you go, if you use debit card versus UPI, they will first encourage you to make the payment by UPI. Reason being, if it is UPI, there won't be any processing charges deducted for them. Full amount they will be getting into their bank account, provided the transaction is somewhere around 2000 rupees. This is not the 2000 rupees exemption what we have in GST, not that. That is different. That is GST on processing fee is exempted if the transaction amount does not exceed 2000. That is in case of debit card, credit card transactions, debit card, card transactions, any card transaction, that is different. But there is processing fee. But here processing fee itself is not there. Which type of card? RuPay debit card and BHIM UPI transactions. Only UPI transactions and RuPay debit cards, not for others. For that processing fee itself is exempted by government. So this is not GST which will exempt, because processing fee cannot be exempted by GST. Processing fee is exempted. So banks will not charge any processing fee for that. Why? Is it absolutely free to the bank? No. Bank, that is this acquiring bank, even though not getting consideration from the customer, but they get consideration from Government of India. Which department? Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. So because central government's motive is to bring the digital transactions and cardless transactions, so that is like even cashless transactions, etc. For that reason, so this Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology will give an incentive to the acquiring bank. So therefore, acquiring bank will not get any money from the customer, but they get consideration from Ministry of Electronic and Information Technology. Is it first of all consideration in the hands of the acquiring bank? This is actually to be treated as subsidy. So that's what now the clarification is being provided here. What is the issue involved here is that whether the acquiring bank getting money from the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology will be treated as consideration in the hands of the acquiring bank, and whether they need to pay GST, because consideration need not be received from recipient. Consideration can be received from any person. So is it treated as consideration, and whether it will be included in the value of taxable supply. For that, the clarification is provided stating that this is first of all treated as subsidy from central government. Subsidy from central government is not treated as consideration. Even while doing the valuation as per section 15 subsection 2 clause E says any subsidy from other than CGRSG only to be included in the value, but subsidy from CGRSG will not be included in the value. So on application of these 2 points, that is section 2 clause 31 meaning of consideration and section 15 subsection 2 clause E, it is clearly given that this particular incentive what is received by the acquiring bank from Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology will be treated like subsidy, and this will not be included in the value. Have a look into the clarification that is provided. Whether GST is applicable on the incentive paid by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology to acquiring banks under the incentive scheme for promotion of RuPay debit cards and low value UPI transactions. So actually what is the low value here? 2000. Under the incentive scheme for promotion of RuPay debit cards and low value UPI transactions, the government pays acquiring bank an incentive as a percentage of value of RuPay debit card transactions and low value transactions up to 2000. The payments and settlement systems prohibits banks. So actually this payments and settlement systems is under RBI. So RBI is giving the relief, okay, providers from charging any amount from a person making or receiving payment through RuPay debit cards and UPI transactions. Therefore, the only difference here is that the consideration for such service, instead of being paid by the merchant or the user of the card, is being paid by the central government in the form of incentive. So this incentive is in the nature of subsidy directly linked to the price and of the service, and the same does not form part of taxable value as per section 2 clause 31 consideration definition, even as per the valuation. So therefore, whether any GST is payable by the acquiring bank on the incentive that they are getting from Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, no. Okay, so this is that scheme, actually P2M scheme, promotion of RuPay cards and debit card scheme. So up to 2000. So this is being given by Government of India. Now we are moving on to the next segment, that is input tax credit. In this input tax credit, already there was one amendment for May 23 exam that is related to Rule 37. So in this Rule 37, that is non-payment of consideration to the supplier within 180 days. So what is that? So there is a supplier and there is a recipient, and supplier is making supply of goods or service and raises invoice to the recipient, and recipient has to make payment to the supplier within 180 days from the date of invoice. If recipient is not making payment to the supplier within 180 days from the date of invoice, then whatever ITC that is availed by this recipient needs to be reversed along with interest at the rate of 18% per annum. Needs to be reversed or paid. Okay. So previously it was given as added to the output tax liability. Added to the output tax liability means either if you have the balance in ITC, you reduce it from that, otherwise you add it to your liability. That is the meaning of that. Along with interest at the rate of 18% per annum from the first date after utilization of ITC. Previously it was availment of ITC. Now they gave a reference, like all these are amendments for May 23 itself. So utilization of ITC, from the date of utilization of ITC till the date of reversal. But what has happened, there was a confusion in that rule. While drafting that rule, they did not mention proportionate payment. So there is a confusion. Suppose if recipient has made payment to supplier 60%, then the confusion started as to whether entire ITC needs to be reversed, because full payment not made to supplier. When full payment is not made to supplier, whether entire ITC needs to be reversed or proportionate to that 40% not paid needs to be reversed. That was the confusion, because in the rule they missed out this point. Accordingly, so an amendment has been made in this rule 37 to incorporate that proportionate payment. So let's have a look into that. Rule 37 after amendment. A registered person who availed ITC on inward supply of goods or service or both other than supplies on which tax is payable under RCM, because we know that this 180 days condition is not applicable for RCM, but fails to pay to the supplier the amount towards value of supply whether wholly or partly, so that is added, whether wholly or partly, along with the tax payable thereon within the time limit specified in second proviso. What is the time limit specified in second proviso? 180 days from the date of invoice. Okay, then shall pay or reverse. So previously this pay was only there, now pay or reverse. So depending upon if you have ITC you will reverse, if you don't have ITC you will pay on the amount equal to the input tax credit availed in respect of such supply, proportionate to the amount not paid to the supplier. So they added this word proportionate to the amount not paid to supplier. Because of that, if the recipient has paid 60% to the supplier within 180 days, what is not paid within 180 days? 40%. So with respect to that 40% only, the recipient has to reverse the ITC along with interest payable thereon under section 50 while furnishing the return in 3B for the tax period immediately following the period of 180 days from the date of issuance of invoice. Okay, that is specified here. And what if again after 180 days we are making the payment, we can re-avail. Now let's take a scenario here, that is 60%, that is recipient has made 60% payment to the supplier, 40% not paid. Okay, so supplier made supply of goods or service and gave an invoice, recipient made 60% payment within 180 days. So what is the percentage not paid? 40%. Now that 40% of the ITC needs to be reversed by the recipient. Now after 180 days, recipient is paying 20%. Recipient is paying 20%. 60 already paid, 20% is paid after 180 days. Now the recipient can re-avail 20%. The recipient can re-avail 20% of the ITC. So therefore, here proportionate to the payment, we can even re-avail the ITC, and also we know that the time limit for re-availment is not applicable in this case. The next amendment in input tax credit is related to Rule 37A. A new rule has been added. This is for the purpose of facilitating section 41. We have section 41 which talks about availment of ITC. So that availment of ITC as per section 41 says that if supplier is not filing GSTR 3B within the time prescribed, then the recipient has to reverse the ITC. So that prescribed is only given in Rule 37A. And accordingly in Rule 37A they are telling that if supplier is not filing GSTR 3B by September of the succeeding financial year, then the recipient has to reverse the ITC. So this is another reversal apart from 180 days. So this is connecting. So that 180 days condition is given in Rule 37 and this is Rule 37A which is related to section 41. Let's try to understand this with the help of a chart. There is a supplier and there is a recipient. Now supplier is making outward supplies and he reports the invoice in GSTR1 and it is filed within due date. Okay. Now based on this GSTR1 filed by the supplier within due date, so the data will be auto-populated to the recipient in GSTR2B. In GSTR2B of the recipient, so auto-populated this details. So whatever details that is reported by supplier in GSTR1, the details will be auto-populated in recipient's GSTR2B. Based on whatever ITC that is there in 2B, so recipient will avail the ITC in 3B. Self-assessed ITC, matched ITC that will be availed. Now this is normal. Now what happens is that supplier did not file GSTR 3B by September of the succeeding financial year. So can recipient take ITC even if supplier not filed GSTR 3B? Yes. Recipient can take ITC even if supplier not filed GSTR 3B. But what is the time limit by which supplier should file the 3B? September 30th of the succeeding financial year, next financial year. So here supplier did not file GSTR 3B by September 30th of the succeeding financial year. Now what happens? This recipient has to reverse the ITC. So much of the ITC availed needs to be reversed along with interest at the rate of 18% per annum. So from the date of utilization till the date of reversal. So as per section 50 subsection 3, from the date of utilization till the date of reversal. Suppose if he is not utilized that ITC, so reversal shall not arise. So this is the 5 steps. Now 6th step. Suppose if supplier files GSTR 3B, then what will happen after September? After September, can he file? Yes, he can file after September also. Suppose if he files after September, supplier files GSTR 3B after September, now recipient can re-avail the ITC reversed earlier, but interest cannot be re-availed, but whatever ITC that is reversed earlier can be re-availed without any time limit. So that is, these are the 7 steps that is involved in this. Actually this section is 41 and the rules related to this is 37A. The rules are notified in this regard. So actually this was an amendment, part of this was an amendment for May 23, but no question came related to this. But this time definitely you can expect a question on this particular concept, or at least in the 14 marks question, so or the comprehensive question, so they will be connecting this. So this will definitely be tested in the forthcoming exam related to this. So this is a very important area. Then next one, the third amendment that we have in input tax credit is related to the place of supply. Let's try to understand a little bit background related to this. That is, in case of transportation of goods, from India to outside India, as per section 12, the place of supply will be ending point of the goods. For example, so there is a transporter who is located in India, and that transporter who is located in India is providing transportation service to a person who is located in India, but the transportation is from India to outside India. Then section 12 is applicable for place of supply, section 12 of IGST Act. The place of supply will be ending point of the goods. So what is the ending point of the goods? Outside India. Here the place of supply will be outside India. And supplier in India, recipient in India, but the place of supply outside India. So this will become deemed interstate supply as per section 7, subsection 5, clause A of IGST Act. As per 7(5)A of IGST Act, this will become deemed interstate supply. Now the question here is that, can the recipient in India avail ITC when the place of supply is outside India? That is the question. The issue is very simple. So the issue is supplier in India, recipient in India, the place of supply you are telling us outside India, and it is chargeable to IGST. Now the recipient in India, can he avail ITC with respect to this? For that, the clarification given by CBIC is that in section 16 or 17, nowhere it is given that if the place of supply is outside India, recipient cannot avail ITC. Consequently, it is used in the course or furtherance of the business of the recipient. So therefore, recipient can definitely take ITC. We don't have any blocked credit or any restriction with respect to this. So what is the conclusion? Even if the recipient, even if the place of supply is outside India, the recipient can avail ITC with respect to this. So that is only they have given. So they have drafted a very big circular related to this. Let's have a look into that. So first they gave that section 12 subsection 8 of IGST Act. So the place of supply of transportation services, so including by mail or courier, is the location of the registered person where the supplier is registered. Where the supplier is unregistered, it is starting point. However, one proviso is there which says that if the goods are taken from India to a place outside India, then place of supply shall be the place of destination of such goods. So in the cases where place of supply concerned is foreign destination and not the state where recipient is registered, doubts were being raised regarding the availability of ITC. For that, so they have given the issues. Okay, so what will be taken as the place of supply and what is the ITC with respect to that, etc. So there clearly it is given. The third point you can see, section 16 lays down the eligibility and condition for taking ITC, whereas section 17 provides for apportionment of credit and block credit under circumstances specified therein. The said provisions of law do not restrict the availment of ITC by the recipient located in India if place of supply of the said input service is outside India. Thus, the recipient of transportation of goods shall be eligible to take ITC in respect of IGST charged by supplier subject to fulfillment of the other conditions as laid down. Means it should be used in the course or furtherance of business of the recipient, and the recipient should be registered. So then recipient can definitely take ITC. What if the recipient is unregistered? Recipient cannot take ITC. So but even then the place of supply will be ending point only. The place of supply will be ending point only, but the recipient is unregistered. So one of the condition for availment of ITC is not satisfied, so they cannot take ITC with respect to this. So these are the 3 amendments that we have with respect to input tax credit. Now we are going to see exemptions and charge segment. In that, what are the amendments? So we have one amendment for May 23 exam itself, that is renting of immovable property. Renting including leasing, hiring of immovable property is exempted if it is residential property provided to a registered person RCM, provided to unregistered person exempted, like that we have seen. Let's try to understand that. Renting of what? Residential property, immovable property being a residential property. So to whom it is given on rent, for what purpose? For residential purpose. Renting of residential property for residential purpose. To whom? To unregistered person is exempted. To registered person is taxable under RCM. So there was a confusion there. That is, what if an individual, what if there is an individual who is registered, who is taking that immovable property, residential property on rent for his family stay, but just because that person is registered, should he pay GST under RCM? Not required. For that, one explanation has been added. So that explanation we will try to look into. For the purpose of exemption under this entry shall cover service provided by way of renting of residential dwelling to a registered person, where the registered person is proprietor of a proprietorship firm or even individual and rents this residential building in his personal capacity. Means it is used for his residence, for the family stay, and such renting is on his own account and not that of the proprietary concern. Then in that case, it is treated as good as renting to an unregistered person, therefore it will be exempted. So that is the explanation that has been added retrospectively to this particular exemption. So therefore, now renting of residential property to a registered person, if the registered person is individual for personal purpose, exempted. If it is individual for business purpose, taxable under RCM. Individual for personal purpose, for his personal purpose only, then it will be exempted. The other exemption that we had previously and now omitted is service by way of toll charges. Toll charges is exempted. Previously also exempted, now also exempted. But previously we had one point. Toll charges by way of annuity was exempted. But now that exemption is omitted. So whenever the promoter or builder or the person who is laying down the roads is collecting toll charges by way of annuity, that will be now taxable. So the exemption which was previously available, they have withdrawn. So consequently, it became taxable. Okay. Then another point is with respect to educational institutions. So any service provided by educational institution by way of conduct of entrance examination against consideration in the form of entrance exam fee is exempted. Correct? So there is an educational institution. That educational institution is collecting entrance exam fee, and the fee collected for conducting entrance exam is exempted. Now, there was one clarification previously, whether the National Board of Examination, which will conduct the exams, entrance exams, is treated as educational institution, and consequently the entrance exam fee collected by them is exempted. For that, so this was a old clarification. For that, CBSE gave a clarification that yes, it is exempt. Again, many queries came up as to what about national testing agency or authority established by government for conducting the entrance exam, etc. For that purpose, they gave a amendment in the notification. What they are telling is that so central and state educational boards are treated as educational institution for the limited purpose of providing service by way of conduct of examination to the students. Therefore, these three, National Board of Examination or National Testing Agency or any authority, board or body set up under central government or state government for conducting entrance exam, anything, any body, any authority is an educational institution in so far as it provides service by way of conduct of entrance examination, and the entrance exam fee collected by them will be exempted. Okay. Then the next amendment is regarding a clarification. So we know that any service provided by government to other than business entity is not always covered under GST. So we know that services provided by government to business entities. So services provided by government is divided into two majorly, specified activities and other activities. What are the specified activities which are covered under supply? Department of Post, airport or port services, transportation of goods or passengers, and services to business entities. All other activities of government other than these four are excluded from supply, and even it is treated as exempted as well. It is treated as exempted. So either you can write it as excluded from supply or you can write it as exempted. Okay. Now the issue here is that so there is a Air Force mess or a canteen or police department mess or canteen which is providing supply of food to its personnel. Whether it will be covered under services provided by government and consequently it will be taxable. Actually, it is service provided by government only. But is it Department of Post? No. Is it transportation? No. Is it airport or port? No. And is it service to business entity? No. Consequently, these activities are provided to individuals other than business entity and it is exempted. So that is the clarification that they have given. It is covered under entry number 6 and therefore it is exempted, and the government is not required to pay any GST on that, let it be FCM or RCM. First of all, this service itself will be exempted. So these are the amendments that we have with respect to exemption segment. Now we are moving on to next segment, that is registration. In registration, we have some good number of amendments only, and the first and foremost amendment in this is that previously we used to give our mobile number and email ID which may not be linked with our permanent account number for the purpose of GST registration. So now they are telling that whenever we make application for registration, so while generating the TRN, so that is temporary reference number, so we need to give the mobile number and email that is already linked with the permanent account number, so that the moment when we give the permanent account number, so mobile OTP and email OTP will be taken from the PAN database, that is from the CBDT database, and to that only they will be sending OTP. What is the need for this? So this will be mainly to avoid lot of people getting registration with the permanent account number of others. So to avoid that only they have just brought in this. So therefore now the OTP will be sent to PAN linked mobile and email. So that is the first amendment. Then the second amendment is with respect to biometric Aadhaar authentication. What is this biometric Aadhaar authentication? A person should go to a biometric center and he need to give his thumb impression, and for the purpose of verification of GST registration they brought this, because lot of people are getting the fake registrations done. So if you have a permanent account number and if you have an Aadhaar card of some other person also, you can create a fake registration. So to avoid that fake registrations only, they brought in this biometric Aadhaar based authentication. But this biometric Aadhaar authentication as a pilot project is now started only in Gujarat, so but not in other states. So what they are telling is that whenever a person is making application for registration. In that, so he will be selecting Aadhaar authentication. So when he selects Aadhaar authentication based on the risk parameters, so that person will be asked to undergo biometric Aadhaar authentication. So which means previously Aadhaar authentication was just a OTP verification to the mail and mobile number, but now he need to go to the nearest enrollment center, Aadhaar enrollment center or biometric center, and there he need to carry that Aadhaar card with him and along with the application reference number. So when he takes that application reference number and the Aadhaar card with him, so there in the center, so some people who are sitting over there will enter this Aadhaar TRN, that is application reference number ARN, and the Aadhaar number, and they will complete the verification and give him so a verification slip. So which means that in the Aadhaar center or a biometric center, the Aadhaar authentication is completed. So that is this. And rather I personally feel, so even in the mobile also, so they should have brought this. So in the mobile, like in digital signature and all, what will happen? So whenever we need to do the KYC in digital signature or DIN, so we'll just take the mobile and we will turn on the camera and we will just look into the mobile for some time. So something of that sort should be brought rather than going to the center and getting it done. Or they should have made this biometric centers more and more in the coming days. So that may happen. So because anyhow right now it is a pilot project only in Gujarat. So based on that learning, so they may make some changes in this regard. So that is with respect to this two amendments. You can have a look into this here. So in order to improve the registration process, biometric Aadhaar authentication of the high risk applicants who opt for Aadhaar authentication number has been introduced on a pilot basis in the state of Gujarat. An applicant who has opted for Aadhaar authentication and identified on the common portal based on data analysis and risk parameters shall be followed by biometric based Aadhaar authentication and taking photograph of the applicant where the applicant is individual. Where the applicant is other than individual, so then such individuals, suppose if the applicant is firm, then the partner, if the applicant is HUF Karta, etc. like that, the application deemed to be complete only after completion of the process laid down here and there. An acknowledgement shall be issued to the applicant only after completion of the biometric Aadhaar authentication. That is with respect to this. Now, suppose if I have normally completed Aadhaar authentication also, based on risk parameters, now they are telling that they will conduct the physical verification of the premises. So in this regard, we need to understand, first of all, who are required to undergo authentication and who are not required to undergo authentication. Let's take an individual, sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship, so every individual should undergo authentication, but what if they are not a citizen of India? They are not required to undergo authentication. Next, you take HUF. In HUF, who is required to undergo authentication? Only Karta, but other members of HUF are not required to undergo authentication. Then you take firm. In firm, only partner, managing partner or authorized partner is required to undergo authentication, but the other partners are not required to undergo authentication. Then you take any other person like company, body corporate or trust, so AOP, BOI, etc. Then who is required to undergo authentication is the authorized signatory. The person who will be called as authorized signatory is required to undergo authentication, whereas other members like other directors or other members of the AOP are not required to undergo authentication. These are the 4 points. Then next, government and its family members. So who are they? That is central government, state government, local authority, and then statutory body or public sector undertakings are not required to undergo authentication. So 4. So first 4 points, not a citizen of India, and second, members other than Karta. Number 3, partners other than managing or authorized partner. Number 4, members other than authorized signatory. Then for government, 4 points, that is central government or state government, local authority, statutory body, public sector undertaking, and last, unique identification number holder. So these people are not required to undergo authentication. So then what will happen with respect to them? For them, some normal KYC could be done, and it because anyhow the main person is undergoing authentication, so these are not required. So that is the reason why they have not given Aadhaar authentication for them. Now, is Aadhaar authentication optional or mandatory? It is actually optional. Suppose if Aadhaar authentication is not opted, what will happen? And where we need to select this? The moment we make application for registration. So in that application for registration, so there will be Aadhaar authentication. So there one option we will be having, whether you want to undergo authentication or not. You need to select that option if you want to undergo authentication, or you don't have to select that option. Suppose if you are not selecting that option, what will happen? If you are not selecting that option, so in that case, so verification of place of business will be carried out by the officer, and then only registration certificate will be granted. And the time limit for that physical verification of premises will be 30 days. So therefore, within 30 days from the date you selected application without authentication, within 30 days from the date, so they will be conducting the physical verification and will grant the registration certificate. If not, it is deemed to be registered. Now, suppose if you are selecting Aadhaar authentication, so then what will happen? So you will get a email OTP and mobile OTP, and you need to enter that OTP so that the authentication is completed. The moment authentication is completed, that is the date on which application is deemed to have been filed. But here only they brought in now one more point, that is biometric Aadhaar authentication. So instead of getting a OTP to your mobile number or email ID, so you have to go to the center, biometric center, for carrying out the Aadhaar authentication. Now this particular information only I have just given so far, but now in this one more addition is being made. That is, I am selecting Aadhaar authentication. When I am selecting Aadhaar authentication also, that is a completed Aadhaar authentication. Even then, based on the risk parameters, now the department can take the application for physical verification. So previously when I am not selecting Aadhaar authentication, only physical verification will be done. But now, even if I complete the Aadhaar authentication, based on the risk parameters, they can take the application for physical verification. So this is another point. Now let's try to understand this Aadhaar authentication in case of new applicants. So what is that they need to do? First, Aadhaar authentication for new applicants, whether Aadhaar number is assigned or Aadhaar number is not assigned. If Aadhaar number is not assigned, the individual or a person other than individual, so what they need to do, shall be offered alternative and viable means of identification when the Aadhaar is not assigned to them. Suppose if Aadhaar is assigned, so what is that alternative and viable means? That alternative and viable means is physical verification. So KYC will be done and physical verification will be granted. Whereas Aadhaar number is assigned. When Aadhaar number is assigned, so we need to check, we need to divide that into two. So other than risk-based biometric Aadhaar authentication or risk-based biometric Aadhaar authentication. So it's a pilot project only in Gujarat. Now other than risk-based biometric Aadhaar authentication, every individual applicant or a person other than individual shall either undergo authentication or furnish proof of possession of Aadhaar. So that is, they need to complete the Aadhaar authentication or they need to furnish the proof of possession of Aadhaar. Suppose if it is risk-based biometric Aadhaar authentication, that is a pilot project in Gujarat. So applicant who has opted for Aadhaar authentication number and identified on the common portal based on the data analysis and risk parameters, maybe some random individuals they may identify, shall undergo biometric based Aadhaar authentication and give photograph along with verification of the original copy of the document in the facilitation center. So that notified facilitation center, so that is how the authentication will be completed. So this chart is with respect to Aadhaar authentication for new applicants. Suppose if I am an already registered person, already I have registered under GST, should I undergo any authentication? Yes. I should also undergo authentication. For what reason? Already I got the registration, but for what reason I need to undergo authentication? There are 3 places where it is mandatory to get the Aadhaar verification done. That is, when we make application for revocation of cancellation of registration, or when we make application for refund, or when we make application for cancellation of registration, or when we make application for refund upon payment of IGST. So basically in cancellation application or revocation of cancellation application or refund application, now Aadhaar authentication is mandatory. So even if you are completing the registration already without Aadhaar authentication, but thereafter you need to possess the Aadhaar number. So therefore, Aadhaar authentication for already registered persons, whether Aadhaar number is assigned or Aadhaar number is not assigned. If Aadhaar number is assigned, the registered person failed to undergo authentication of Aadhaar or furnish proof of possession of Aadhaar number or furnish some other alternative and viable means of identification, then the registration allotted to that person shall be invalid. Whereas if the Aadhaar number is not assigned, registered person shall be offered alternative and viable means of identification and shall furnish identification and documents. That is, they need to get a Aadhaar enrollment slip. Plus they also should submit some other verification like bank passbook or driving license, voter ID, passport, something they need to submit. So this is in case of already who are registered. So this is what they have brought in with respect to already registered persons. Now, how is it going to affect the deemed registration? So we have deemed registration, that is within a prescribed time limit. If the registration certificate is not granted, then the registration is deemed to have been granted and thereafter they cannot reject the application. So that is what deemed registration is. Now first you need to check whether a person has opted for Aadhaar authentication. No, the person has not opted for Aadhaar authentication. Then what is the time limit within which the registration certificate should be granted? Within 30 days from the date of application. Otherwise, registration is deemed to have been granted. So within 30 days from the date of application, if registration is not granted, then deemed registration. Suppose if Aadhaar authentication is opted and whether Aadhaar authentication is completed within 15 days. So once Aadhaar authentication is opted, what is the time period within which we need to complete the Aadhaar authentication? 15 days. Whether it is completed within 15 days. So no, it is not completed within 15 days. Then on expiry of that 15 days, so it is deemed that application is made without authentication and from there 30 days will count. So within 30 days from expiry of 15 days, whether registration is granted or not granted, then also deemed registration. So here the overall time limit will become 45 days. Now say you made Aadhaar authentication within that 15 days. Yes. Whether you got any notice in REG 3 and you replied to that notice within 7 working days. So then in that case, within 7 working days from the date of reply, whether registration is granted, if yes, then okay, otherwise deemed registration. Suppose you did not get any notice. So, but they have thought that based on risk parameters that require site verification, I told you this. So even if we opted for authentication and we completed authentication, now we have an amendment which says that based on risk parameters, site verification is required, yes. Then within 30 days from the application, so if the registration is not granted, within 30 days from when? Within 30 days from the application. Even though that is when is it counted as application? The date when you complete the authentication, that date is counted as the application. So within 30 days from application, if the registration is not granted, then also deemed registration. So now we have in total 5 points with respect to deemed registration. So previously we had 4, now these 5 points. So this can be tested as a theory question. So what are the 5 points with respect to deemed registration? Number 1, application made without Aadhaar authentication and like registration not granted within 30 days from the date of application. Second, application made with authentication but authentication not completed within 15 days and after expiry of that 15 days, within 30 days, registration not granted. Number 3, within 7 working days from the date of authentication, registration is not granted. So then also there will be deemed registration. Then within 30 days from the application, registration is not granted if the officer has selected so physical verification based on risk parameter basis, or you got a notice and you reply to the notice within 7 working days from reply to the notice. If registration is not granted, then also deemed registration. So these are the 5 points that you need to keep in mind. So I have just given it in the chart form so that easily you can remember this and go for the exam. The next amendment that we have is with respect to TDS and TCS deductor can also now make application for cancellation of registration. Previously, only a registered person, so normal registered person can make application for cancellation. But now they brought in even TDS deductor or TCS deductor. You can see this. Rule 12 sub rule 3 has been suitably amended to provide as follows, where a request is made by the person to whom registration has been granted. So either TDS or TCS deductor, normal registration, any person can make an application for cancellation of registration. So these are the various amendments that we have in registration chapter. The next amendment that we are going to see is in payment process. One small amendment is there, that is electronic cash ledger. Usually what will happen whenever we will make the payment through e-payment gateway, so the money will get debited in our bank account and thereafter it will be reflected into the electronic cash ledger. Now what happens? So there might be some delay or there might be some issue with respect to communication by the bank to the electronic cash ledger about the credit. Say for example, money got debited in our bank account, but so maybe some internet connectivity issue or some other connectivity issue or some communication channel issue, so the amount not got reflected in cash ledger. So then in that case, how the challan identification number will be generated? Because the moment we create a challan, there will be common portal identification number. Only when the payment is completed, so it will have a challan identification number. For that, they have given one notification. That is, in case where bank fails to communicate this challan identification number details of taxes paid through e-payment made through GST system for updating the electronic cash ledger, the electronic cash ledger of the taxpayer are updated next day on the basis of RBI e-scroll file. So RBI will give a e-scroll file containing the successful payment made against the challan identification number as shared by bank with RBI. However, there is presently no provision in the CGST rules providing for such updation of cash ledger based on e-scroll of RBI. So for that, Comptroller and Auditor General highlighted the need of having a specific provision in the law for updation of ECL on the basis of e-scroll of RBI. Accordingly, they have made the amendment in Rule 87(8) that the moment the payment is debited from the bank account of the taxpayer and the communication is not received, then based on RBI's e-scroll, that is usually the transaction ID etc. is there na. So based on that, the electronic cash ledger will be credited and accordingly the challan identification number will be generated. So this amendment is being made in the common in the provisions of electronic cash ledger. So see the last paragraph, where the bank fails to communicate details of CIN to the common portal, the electronic cash ledger may be updated on the basis of e-scroll of RBI in cases where the details of said e-scroll are in conformity with the details of challan generated in form GST PMT6 in the common portal. So this is one small amendment related to payment process. Then in returns, we have one major amendment, that is they have added one new rule, that is Rule 88C. What is the background of this Rule 88C? Let's try to understand. Say there is a supplier who has reported the invoices in GSTR1 and the value of that invoices is 100 lakhs, on that the GST will be 18 lakhs. But in their 3B for the month, they have discharged a liability of only 15 lakhs. So 3 lakhs, there is a difference between GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. Why this situation will arise? This situation arises because, so we will upload the invoices in GSTR 1 in order to give ITC to our recipient, but thereafter we may not make the payment in 3B. So there is a mismatch between our GSTR 1 and our GSTR 3B. So our GSTR 1 liability will be more than our GSTR 3B liability. So if it is because of credit note, then the credit note would have been reported in GSTR 1 as well. So literally a person has paid lesser amount in 3B, maybe on account of shortage of funds or some other reason. In that case, previously there was one circular. That circular was telling that if there is any discrepancy between GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, an intimation will be given to the taxpayer, and if the taxpayer is not replying to that intimation within the time prescribed in that intimation, then direct recovery will be initiated under section 79. So section 79 of CGST talks about recovery of demand order. So in that section 79 says that recovery can be initiated. So therefore they are telling that department can initiate recovery as per 79. But this information was given in circular. Circulars are binding only on the department, not on the taxpayer. So taxpayers were not reverting to that intimation. Due to that reason, this amendment has been brought in the rule itself. So rule 88C has been added. So what is this rule 88C is all about? First, liability in GSTR 1 greater than liability in GSTR 3B by prescribed amount or percentage. Who will prescribe this amount or percentage? GST council will tell, so as to this much amount, maybe so 5% or maybe 10% or maybe like 20,000 or 40,000, like that, that will be prescribed. Now, intimation in the common portal. So to that person, to the taxpayer whose GSTR 1 liability is more than GSTR 3B liability, so intimation will be given in the common portal and a copy will be sent to the email of the registered person. Now within 7 days, not 7 working days, 7 days, what the registered person should do? That registered person may agree and pay the differential amount along with interest at the rate of 18% under section 50, or may explain the reason for the difference in the common portal. Maybe tax already paid for the earlier months, for which we are adding GSTR 1 only for the current month. So whatever is the reason for the difference, so that explanation should have been offered. Either they have to pay or they need to give the explanation. What is the time limit within which they need to do? Within 7 days. Now, say for example, they have given the explanation and the explanation is found acceptable, or they paid the tax, they paid the differential amount along with interest, then the proceedings will be concluded. So if the explanation of the registered person is found acceptable, then the proceedings are concluded. Suppose if registered person neither paid the difference nor given the explanation, or explanation has been given but it is not found acceptable by the department, then in that case, so department will initiate recovery under section 79. So directly it will be recovered. So for recovery, there is lot of procedures for recovery, like they will recover from the any money owed to that person by the government, or they will deduct it from the bank account of that person. Like that, recovery proceedings they will initiate. And second consequence, first consequence, recovery under section 79, and the subsequent period GSTR 1 or invoice furnishing facility will be blocked, so that till the time he gives an explanation for this or he accepts and pay, he cannot file the GSTR 1 for the subsequent tax period. When he cannot file GSTR 1 for the subsequent tax period, means his recipient cannot avail any ITC. So then his recipient will start torturing the supplier as to I am not getting the ITC, etc. Okay. So until the differential tax is deposited or proper explanation has been offered, so GSTR 1 or IFF will be blocked for the subsequent period. So this is about Rule 88C. Previously it was in the form of a circular. Now they have just added as a rule itself. Then the second important amendment that we have with respect to late fee. So what is the late fee for delay in filing GSTR 9 or 9C? So for the GSTR 9 or 9C, so it was including 9B. 9 is by annual return to be filed by a normal registered person. 9B annual return by a e-commerce operator. 9C self-certified reconciliation statement where my aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crores. Now what is this late fee that is applicable? You can see here, if that is before this amendment, the late fee was very simple. 100 rupees per day subject to maximum 0.25% of the turnover in a state or union territory. This is under CGST Act. The same amount is payable under SGST Act. Now they retained that for aggregate turnover exceeding 20 crores. So a person whose aggregate turnover exceed 20 crores, then only it will be. So you can see there, last row, aggregate turnover during previous year exceed 20 crores, 100 rupees per day subject to maximum 0.25% of the turnover in a state or union territory. And the equal amount is payable under SGST Act. What if my aggregate turnover does not exceed 20 crores but exceeds 5 crores? Then even reconciliation statement is also there na, 50 rupees per day subject to maximum 0.02%, not 0.25, 0.02% of the turnover in a state or union territory. Whereas if my aggregate turnover does not exceed 5 crores, I don't have 9C, only 9. So therefore 25 rupees per day subject to maximum 0.2%, 0.2% of the turnover. So remember, for first two cases, if my aggregate turnover does not exceed 5 crores or exceeds 5 but does not exceed 20, the maximum late fee will be 0.02% of the turnover. Whereas per day late fee will be, if it is aggregate turnover does not exceed 5 crores, 25 rupees per day, exceeds 5 crores, 50 rupees per day. Suppose if it exceeds 20 crores, then 100 rupees per day subject to maximum 0.25% of the turnover. This is late fee under CGST Act. Now in the question, when they ask late fee, in MCQ mainly we get confused, late fee payable. Now you add both CGST, SGST and see the option. Suppose if they ask late fee under CGST Act, you see only late fee under CGST Act in the options. Okay, both the options will be given. Be careful with respect to this. So these are the amendments that we have in returns chapter. E-way bill. Generally there are some goods for which e-way bill is not required. And in that, for jewelry, precious stone, semi-precious stones, etc., we don't have to generate the e-way bill. And in that there is one amendment that for imitation jewelry. So why for jewelry e-way bill not required? Because e-way bill is a public document. If everyone knows as to what jewelry is being transported, which vehicle, etc., on which date, which route, so then any person can steal the jewelry. That's the reason why with respect to jewelry there is a restriction that e-way bill is not required. So there are some goods for which e-way bill not required in that. But now they have amended this point and they are telling for all gold jewelry, silver jewelry or precious stones, etc., e-way bill not required except imitation jewelry. Means for imitation jewelry, imitation is artificial jewelry, for that e-way bill is definitely required now. We completed all the amendments. Thank you, and please do share this video with all your friends and subscribe to this channel. Thank you a lot for your support, for the tremendous support that you are showing. So we'll stay in touch and we'll be posting you other videos as well. Thank you. Signing off. Bye.